Arjumand is gonna join us then and with the talk, Needle in the Haystack Problem for Scientific Literature, How Can Python Help? And just a quick introduction. So Arjumand Younus is a senior postdoc research fellow at UCD. And her research is on data-driven agriculture through machine learning, specialized in information retrieval, text mining, knowledge discovery, and management and data science. Welcome, Arjumand. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So it's needle in the haystack problem for scientific literature. How can Python help? What is needle? What is haystack? Let's talk a bit about that first before moving on. So as we all know, haystack is something that's, a stack of hay. And if something gets lost, especially something as small as a needle in it, it would be very, very hard to find it. So I'm from information retrieval, and within the information retrieval community, we use this analogy a lot because, we have tons and tons of information, especially with the growing World Wide Web. When we're looking for something, it's kind of like when we're looking for very specific information, especially on Google search, and let's say you want to find the name of a medicine for a particular disorder or something. It's like a needle in the haystack problem. You have a very specific query in mind, and the information that you are going to dig into is huge, like a haystack. It's all lost there, and you're finding your needle. So that's sometimes the search problem in information retrieval is called the needle in the haystack problem. Now, for academics, there is a special kind of information called scientific literature, scientific articles. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar. How many of you have actually read scientific papers? The person you introduced in the beginning who got her PhD, of course, she was a scientist. So whatever she wrote must have been coming from the scientific domain. She must have written scientific papers and all. But to write, you need to search. So for scientific literature, also this problem is very, very significant. And I'll give some tips on how Python can be useful for it. So who am I? Lice introduced me already, but just to recap again, I did my PhD back in 2015, and the title of my thesis was Utilization of Social Breadcrumbs for User Profiling and Personalization. So back then I was very active in IR, information retrieval, machine learning, but now I'm more in machine learning, data science stuff, and currently working in data-driven agriculture. So it's kind of like I've changed domains a little bit, but now there's so much intersection between different areas, so I don't feel it much. But information retrieval and recommender systems and all that is my first love. So, and I've been doing a postdoc since 2016, so it's a long, long time, but I love academia and no plans to change it for now. So yeah, also I call myself a part-time activist for different social causes. If you see my Twitter, you can see from time to time there are different political causes, some open source causes that I'm very enthusiastic about. Okay, so like my previous talks, this is my third talk for Python Ireland, I think. Yeah, I like giving talks to you guys. So for this one, as usual, it will be a mix of something from academia and from the Python hacks. Mostly I come from an academic background, so a lot of what I talk about is also on the theoretical side, on the academic side of things, and it's a learning experience. Earlier I talked about social media analytics and COVID-19 and in misinformation, etc. And today also I will introduce some libraries that you can use, but not too much. For that, you can contact me personally and we can discuss offline. But in this talk, I like to talk more about what we academics do. What is a published culture? What are the kind of recommender systems we use? How do we find information and all that stuff? So first we'll take a look into published culture, then a little bit into recommender systems, What are recommender systems for scientific papers, scientific articles? Google Scholar is already there, so why do we need something else? We'll talk a bit about its shortcomings and then what computer scientists can do and some Python hacks. So as you can see in this figure, there's this scientist and he wants to go reach the goal of paper accepted, but there are lots of people on the way who's stopping. So that's one thing about PhD. Anyone who's doing a PhD and who is in academia knows that to survive in this field, you basically become an animal that's constantly after papers. You're writing papers, you're reading papers. It's very important. Everything in this area depends on it. So it's like, you want a promotion, okay, you will be judged by your papers. You want to change your job in academia, you'll be judged by your papers. The prestige, all of it comes from, so we also have a term for it called publish or perish. So if you're publishing, you will survive in it. If you're not, you perish in academia. That's how it is. It's a cruel world. So, but to publish, we need to read existing literature, what is already out there, because if one thing, strong criteria for us getting published or getting anything out is that it has to have some novelty, like if someone hasn't done it before, because it's science. Science is all about advancement of knowledge, and advancement of knowledge means that you have some teeny tiny, even if it's teeny tiny contribution, but you gave a new thing, a new way to do something, or a new idea. Or when penicillin, the antibiotic, was first discovered, it was a scientific discovery and an academic discovery more than anything else. Now it's so much in news, but back then it was the scientist who gave it won a Nobel Prize because it was something from academic. I'm sorry about the noise. My children are sick today, so okay. So even in academia and scientific literature, we have what we call the information overload problem. We all are familiar with Netflix. Netflix solves it for movies and for TV shows, right? We were overwhelmed with all the TV shows and all the movies and stuff. So, but Netflix has kind of like solved it so can we have something similar for scientific papers? That's the big question. So the answer is yes, we can, and we do have it. There is a thing called Google Scholar. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it, but I'm pretty sure most would have used it. So it has this auto recommendation feature, like if you have a scholar profile, you're given some recommendations. Like this, for example, is the homepage of Google Scholar for my husband. Now he has published in Wikipedia, in knowledge graphs and all semantic similarity stuff. So the paper he's being recommended are in that domain. If you see this one, this is for me. I've published in personalization, in collaborative filtering and stuff. So that's why the titles are around that for me. But there's a problem in Google Scholar recommendations. What if I'm someone who is absolutely new, who has zero publications? I'm just starting my PhD, I'm in first year. So I will have nothing of this sort. Like see all recommendations. I won't have any recommendations because I don't have a Google Scholar profile. So this in recommender systems is what we call the cold start problem. So I don't have a profile. I don't have any content to begin with. So how is anybody going to find similar content? Like when you first register for Netflix, Netflix asks for some of your favorite movies, some of your favorite TV shows that already exist. Because you're new to the platform, it needs to have some information about you, which is why it asks you these questions. So the initial sign up problem for Netflix kind of like irritates you, but it's just to build up your profile so that you can get recommendations. But Google Scholar uses your own publications profile for it. Now, the problem is, what if somebody doesn't have it? So of course the recommendations are not going to be good. So, but with Google Scholar, there's also a search feature. So people, mostly the new researchers, use that search feature. However, I personally feel that that search feature is not that good. It is somewhat limited. How, why, we'll talk about it a little later in my talk. So I'll talk about some techniques in recommender systems. The most famous one that is mostly in new use by Netflix, YouTube, the popular recommender systems is collaborative filtering. As the name suggests, you are using the filterings by your collaborations to filter out what you want to see. Like for example, if say somebody who likes the movies that I like, action movies, also likes thriller movies or suspense movies. So most likely if I watched an action movie, I'll be recommended a suspense movie as well. So this is the idea of collaborative filtering, that an item that a user likes uh, can be similar to items liked by similar users. So if somebody is liking a lot of thriller movies and he's also liking a lot of romance movies, so chances are that I'm also like that person because my likes are the same. And they use matrix factorization algorithm for it, which is easily available. Many Python implementations of it are available. So do we have this for scientific articles? Of course we do. However, the problem is, how do you get the likes for scientific articles? In Netflix, you have the ratings. In Netflix, you have the view times and all. But how about for articles? You don't go, and there's no platform where you can like, uh, thumbs up a paper or thumbs down a paper or something like that. It will basically be insulting for the author of the paper that people are going to have thumbs up or thumbs down for it, like YouTube. So what's but scientific papers have a thing called citations. So if I'm going to write a paper on, let's say, machine learning, chances are I will definitely cite the papers that are the pioneers. If I'm writing something on linear regression for crop yield in agriculture, of course, I will cite the paper that first introduced the whole idea of linear regression. So that's a citation that I'm giving to the author who already wrote the paper on linear regression. So we have these citation graphs in scientific articles, and that's what we use as a proxy for the collaborative filtering, as a likes thing. So this, when combined with content, gives rise to recommender systems techniques in the domain of scientific articles. I have explained it very simply. It's not that simple. The implementation has a lot of maths, a lot of details, and there are different novel implementations on top of neural nets and all, deep learning based ones. But I've just simplified the whole process, but that's how it's essentially working. So you can say a bit of a mixture of Amazon, because Amazon is content based. You use the information about the products in Amazon, and also like a bit of like Netflix or YouTube, where you're using the similar likes, because a paper that is being cited by many papers is definitely a good paper and it will be recommended. It has to be on top of the recommender list, something like that. Okay, another thing, I'm in computer science. Now computer science is a very different field from the other academic fields like chemistry, physics, even maths. They have mostly journals, which the publication cycle, I submit a paper today, I might get a review in like 5 months from now, and my paper will be out ready in about a year or a year and a half, or even 2 years from now. Computer science doesn't work that way. We know that. Uh, we are in the Python community. We know that what we are talking about today might as well change in a week from now, because new libraries, new tools are coming up at such a rapid pace that to keep up, we need to be quick. In computer science, a special mode of publication was introduced called conferences. These have a uh, better turnaround of like 2 months or 3 months, which is still slow by some standards. For programmers, developers know that this is also slow because the programming tools are released very quickly, but still better than nothing. So we have these databases. So Google Scholar, fine, it's useful. It indexes all of the articles and all, but there is a specialized resource we use, which is called computer science databases. So there are different types: InSpec, Scopus, Web of Science, DBLP. Now DBLP is the best among these, and I I spent some time in South Korea. My master's is from South Korea at KAIST. Heist is known as the Asian MIT, and there we use this technique from DBLP where, you know, the most recent works of within a domain, you must know the conferences and the journals of your domain. Like, for example, I'm in information retrieval, I should know about the top conference. If not, somebody senior to me can tell me. And what I do, you browse through the 5-year uh, publications of these manually, and you jot down. And I'm looking, let's say I'm thinking about a research problem that I want to investigate in my master's or my PhD. I haven't jot down that yet. So this technique was taught to us by our Korean colleagues, postdocs, and PhD students, that you browse through the last 5-year articles within your the top conferences of the area you're in, or the top journals. And then based on many titles that you'll collect, you will finally get to something. This is a very interesting technique. Not many people know about it, uh, especially in Europe. This is something that Asian scientists do a lot to, you know, get an idea of a new field or something, or even an old field, what's happening, what are the recent developments. So this was something that I found very interesting, and I have been telling about this technique to scientists and to colleagues in Europe, and they found it very fascinating as well. So all of this we did in manually in South Korea. And it's effective for both new researchers and also experts. Like, experts can find out what's the recent development. If their experts are known for something that's already well developed, like, for example, if I'm in information retrieval and my area is personalization, so I'll be good at that. But uh, some new areas might have come in information retrieval, and some of the ideas are would have been such that I can utilize in person. For example, word embeddings, I didn't know about it for a long time. Back when I was busy in my PhD, 2015, the first word embedding article came out. I couldn't follow up, but then in 2018, 2019, I wanted to, you know, look into some new ideas. So this is the thing that I did instantly. I went to DBLP, I looked at the recent works in NLP conferences, in IR conferences, and that's how I got ahead of, you know, I got a good idea of what's going on. So this technique taught by South Korean researchers is still very useful, and I still recommend it to people in Europe. Not many professors, not many academics in Europe teach this technique. I don't know why, or maybe they use different techniques. So, however, like I said, this had to be done manually. So, like, and it takes a lot of time. But there's a Python hack that I'm going to talk about that can download search results from DBLP. All you need is a pip install DBLP, and this command is very, you know, neat, and it can download some recent papers for you within an area. However, the problem is like it the installation worked well for Python 2, and some of my code is still in Python 2, the older version of Ubuntu I'm working on, but I know it will soon be deprecated. So there is a version in Python 3, but I haven't come around to that. But if I figure it out, or if anyone else does, please do share. So I'll just show a small demo for you guys. Wait, can you see my terminal, the black window?
No.
No? Okay, I
No.
need to stop this share and wait. Yeah. Yeah. Now?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do, I've already installed this command pip install DBLP. So I'm going to the command line, because you see I have Python 2.7 here. That's why. So we go to import DBLP, right? Now let's say I want some papers in machine learning. So DBLP dot search method, and you can pass it as a list of different terms. So machine learning, and also let's say any other area somebody would like to say.
NLP?
Okay, so we have to write the whole form, I think.
Okay.
Natural language processing. Okay, So now it has some results. Let's see some of the top results here. Yeah. So you see, they are very recent works, 2020. I don't know why it's not showing the, yeah, here are the some titles. See, machine learning tools for biomarker, linear algebra and optimization. So these are some very, oh, and it returns some books so as well. So if I give it some more parameters, it will return some journals. And because DBLP is very rich, they have journal articles, they have books, they have conference publications. So using this library, the whole process that we used to do manually, you can just specify that you want a conference publication and it will return that. So this is something that I found very handy in my research. Okay, I'll stop this one now. Yeah. Okay. And that's why I wanted to share with you guys. So if any one of you is just starting or just wants to get an idea of some fields, this is a handy method. Something you can, just download some paper titles and begin from there. Another API exists for Google Scholar, which is called Scholarly. I haven't used it myself, but it has a Python interface as well. I might use it in the near future for a paper I'm working on. So now I'll talk about a bit about what we are doing right now. So the whole idea is, if you go to Google Scholar and you just enter natural language processing or any other field name like machine learning or anything, it will give you the papers that have been cited the most, the papers with most number of citations, which is good, fine. But sometimes an expert would already know about that. Somebody who has been in the field for a long, long time would know about the works of Christopher Manning or Dan Jarafsky, that all these are pioneers in the field and they have done a lot of work in, let's say, PMI, pointwise mutual information. These are very, very old concepts in natural language processing from the 1980s and 1990s. I don't want these papers. So what if I want to see how the field has evolved over the years and what is the current state of it? Is there any tool, any recommender system that can show an evolutionary form? Right now, I don't know of anything like that. Especially this is very important when you're going into interdisciplinary research. Like currently I'm working with people from agriculture, and when we're in discussion, when we are in discussion with them, at times they bring in so old techniques that I have to explain to them, take a step back. Oh, no, 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 you're talking about 1970s, 1980s techniques. Because they are from agriculture, they don't know computer science. How can I expect them to? So if I would have something like this tool, I can help to explain them, look, the field has evolved from this to this. So what I'm talking about is a new technique. It will give you better results, even in agriculture. So that's the whole idea, to use dynamic word embeddings to study the evolution of a field and where a term that, say machine learning or regression, how did it evolve from over the years? Or even if we take the example of news articles, if you see this paper on dynamic word embeddings, you will see that the term apple in the articles in 1980s, apple was mostly surrounded by context words of fruits or pie or jam or things like that. Now it's mostly co-occurring with Microsoft, Google. Why? Because Apple is mostly a technology company. So yeah, that's an interesting idea I'm working on. And yeah, we hope to be able to make some progress on that. If anyone is interested, you can of course reach out and we will see some possible collaborations. As usual, I'm very open to that. And you can reach me out on Twitter. That's my Twitter handle. So I guess that's about it. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity for this talk. Any questions?
Thank you, Arjumand. Yeah, well, now is the time and opportunity for questions, if you have any. I think the system allows for that.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to say, yes, it is the third time you're here with us, but we love having you here. So thank you. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah. Yeah, I love being with you guys. It's fun.
So we ran a little poll. A question was, in your day-to-day job, do you read academic papers? So most of the answers said never, which is, you know, likely and to be expected outside the academic
Yep.
field. But I think the truth is in less than I should.
Yeah.
I know I do maybe a couple of times a year, and it always surprises my colleagues. Are you reading academic papers? Are you trying to graduate in something? I said, no, you know, research is there, and at some point we should apply to business. So we should stay aware of what's happening. So I think this is very relevant talk to, you know, professional as well.
Yes, because you know, one thing that I feel professionals are not doing, especially in software development or even in data science and stuff, you guys don't know that a problem that you're trying to solve may already have been solved by the research community. Like back when I was working in a software firm in Pakistan, we sometimes got stuck in some problems, like how to make my code faster or how to optimize something. And turns out an academic paper would have a solution to that. Of course, it would be hard to find the code to that. It's not always possible. But even if you get an idea, but nowadays, the good thing is most of the conferences make it mandatory to publish your code along with the paper. So mostly you find the implementations. That's the good thing. And this is a very recent development. Like 5 years ago, this was not possible, but now most papers have accompanying code. So it's half of your problem solved. So I will highly recommend, if you're doing data science, if you're doing NLP, if you're doing things like that, do try to look into academic papers. It's something, not something to be proud about. It's something that maybe you're missing out on something
Yeah,
in your day-to-day
absolutely.
job. Yeah.
It's actually funny you mentioned that because I would do a lot of research internally in my own work, but I would normally only look at stuff that was private to my own company. So I'd only look at papers from my peers. I'd never actually look really at academic papers, you know, not since I was doing my master's, but it's probably a real untapped resource there that we should be using a lot more.
Exactly. You should. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have questions there from George from the audience. We can see your hands raised here, you know. Oh, I miss that good feeling of the crowd in the rooms. So the question is, so George is an engineer and mentions, can an engineer use that kind of tool to find papers related to his, you know, more specific sector? I think the underlying question is, say I'm a computer software developer and I'm facing, you know, a class of problem. How long or how confident can I be? I will find maybe useful papers using that techniques. And I think a secondary question there is which journals there would be good pointers for software development.
Okay. So the question first, answer to the first question, yes, of course you can use it. You just put, you know, whatever field you like. Let's say requirements engineering, your query would be dblp.search requirements engineering. That's just an example. And for the top journals in software development, software engineering, from the top of my head, there is a paper, there's a journal systems and software. It's a very, journals basically have a thing called impact factor. So above 5 in software engineering, there are some that have like 10 impact factor. So those are really good ones. So whenever you look into, so the Web of Science that I mentioned many databases. One of them is Web of Science, and it's ranked by impact factor. So if you just query it, your area on impact on software engineering, and you will find the top journals in that, and you go from there and look into the journals from there. Any other question?
Yes, we have a few. So Tahir is saying that he didn't know that Google Scholar had an API. Could you elaborate more on the DBLP Korea method in the topic research? Because like, yeah, I also thought that was quite interesting how you applied the technique and then you just found this library that does it. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, yeah. Well, what you have to do, let's say the top conferences in my area are SIGIR, CIKM, what else? ECML, ECIR. So there were 3 or 4. So what the professor and his students said to us is go in the past 5-year paper. I was doing my master in 2010. So from 2010 to 2005, he said to read all the paper, first start with the titles. So the DBLP library, the DBLP database just has like the titles of the papers. Browse through the titles, whatever title you find interesting, mark it down somewhere, note down the title, and come to it later on. Then read the abstract. Based on the abstract, do a further shortlisting, and then when you're done with that, you will have a set of like 50 or so papers. Read the introductions, and then it might give you a basic idea of what you're interested in, because anyone who's starting master's or PhD knows that he wants to go in this area. But the specific problem that you want to solve, you don't know whether it's already solved or not, or if it's solved, it can it be made better. So that's something that they helped us with, and it's more for those who want to start research in an area or start a PhD. We were doing masters, so that's what they taught us. That's the whole technique.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. And Paul, so thank you as well. Cool. So Pablo has an interesting question as well about referencing. So given that referencing is one of the major problems, major factors for ranking a paper, is this manipulable? So could this create a situation in which flawed or directly fraudulent papers are referenced instead of the ones that are more relevant? He said also that he recalled some paper or article about this happening in the pharmaceutical industry or medicine field, but it
surprising.
yeah, but can't reference it now. Do you have any knowledge of this happening?
Yeah, it does happen. Then there is a thing called self-citations. There would be researchers who want to, go on top of the game. There's a thing called H-index, because everything you do in academia, you're ranked by your citations, how many people have cited your papers. So the more people that cite your works, and people often do this, they ask their students, oh, you haven't cited my papers, go and cite my papers in your PhD thesis. I've been there, trust me, it does happen a lot, but there's a limit to it. You can, of course, the prestigious scientists will eventually be filtered out from those who are doing this. You will find out. And even like you mentioned in the pharmaceutical, eventually it was discovered that these kind of things are happening. They can happen. There is plagiarism as well, but it's also possible to detect within a year or two. And yeah, that does go around, that kind of manipulation, but eventually it doesn't go undetected.
Well, thank you for your answer. Well, hopefully we have a little bit of hope still for those papers. Cool. So we have a new question here. So most good research papers which are published in journals require some part of paid subscription to access. Is it the same with the DBLP? And if not, how good are they in comparison to the paid ones?
Oh, that's a huge problem which academics are fighting these days. No, a lot of it, you just have access to the title, to the references. But with archive, do you know about archive?
No.
Okay, a lot of researchers are encouraged to put their paper on archive first. It's a manual library by Harvard, by some scientists at Harvard, and all of it is open access. So most of the papers in conferences especially, you can find an archive version. So we are mostly encouraging this open access thing, and because knowledge science should be free. It's bizarre to have a subscription fees. Like we agree that it's crazy if we are into knowledge dissemination and knowledge advancement, then why have fees? Why have these paywalls and all? But it's just a monopoly of these journals, which a lot of academics are trying to fight. In fact, there was a huge boycott of Elsevier by some academics because they don't promote open access. They charge a very high fees. There's still, see, that's the social cause, political cause I was talking about. I'm very enthusiastic about. So yeah, this is something that bothers me as well. All of my papers you can find. You just search my name, any paper you want, I put them on open access. And a lot of other researchers have done that too. So most of them these days, yeah, you can find, but still this is a huge problem about the paywalls and all.
Yep, I agree with you. Well, thank you. Thank you for your answer. And then Harry is asking, also on the topic of paywalls, do you have anything to say about SciHub? Do you know SciHub?
Well, the creator of SciHub is hailed as a hero so I'm part of that wing that thinks that she is a hero. So yeah, I'm all for it.
Well, can you elaborate? Because for the rest of us, this is lacking a bit of context.
I have no idea what SciHub is. Yes, that was going to be my next question. It's like, okay, so what is SciHub then? Do you know what SciHub is? Now tell me.
SciHub, you can call something like the BitTorrent of scientific papers. Yeah, in short.
Seriously, I didn't know that existed. That sounds amazing.
Yeah. So you just put a paper, a DOI or something, and most of the papers, chances are you'll be able to download.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I guess we don't have any more questions. Does anyone has any more questions? That's going to be the last one. Anyone? Yes, there is one follow-up question. So to what extent is peer review trustable in publishing and academic context?
Yeah, well, I'm not in pharma, but the load of reviewing is sometimes because we review in journals for free. Like I'm a reviewer in many conferences in journals. So this is something that does make the process slow. And yes, some journals do go lax on it when they don't have sufficient reviewers. And so again, I would say impact factor is the thing to look out for. If you have a journal that has no impact factor, chances are the quality of the articles will not be that high. But if you have a journal that's very high impact factor, like Nature, PLOS and all these, so chances are the articles are good.
Thank you very much, Arjumand. Thank you very much for everyone that asked questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.